Hey everybody, I asked Dark Unicorn Studios to pick a specific option for a video idea, and long story short, he chose a specific one indeed. This time it's about a story I've basically written about a robot powered by supernatural forces. You heard that right. Begin. So our story starts in 2030. Basically, in this time period, a organization has been formed. Basically, this organization was formed by scientists who have been rejected by the scientific community. They, as a result, formed an organization to basically continue their research, but at the same time, due to their grudge against the scientific community and the rest of the world, they refuse to share their discoveries with the rest of the world. And because they're literal geniuses, um, governments and the public have been having a hard time trying to get them to share some of their discoveries. The public has tried things like the law and stuff, and they basically came up with some new laws about technology has been made just to try to get some of these discoveries taken from them. They've only done very little. Long story short, this organization had a lot of beef with it, but a lot of people also support it at the same time. As a result, funders and donators have basically been keeping the organization still alive despite the many bullets it literally takes every single day. There was even a guild that formed that basically was made to combat it and basically beat up workers and supporters of the organization. Now in this bizarre universe that I created using my imagination, we find a character, more specifically a robot, a tiny robot. In this future, tiny robots are used for many specific purposes: cleaning purposes, investigation purposes, searching purposes, and so much more. Also, they can now this robot, let's call him B29. Japanese people may find that an offensive name, but yeah. Long story short, B29 was a happy-go-lucky robot. They are constructed by the organization. However, the organization's supernatural division decided to experiment with the use of artifacts and opal crystals believed to have supernatural capabilities before implanting them in the form of microchips into B29's body. They're an artificial life form, a machine basically, that was, well, supernatural. Now B29 had basically due to their AI becoming more and more sophisticated, they had basically formed a type of crush or an attraction towards a robot who was a friend of theirs. This robot unfortunately rejected him because you see they were an older model, basically older than B29. They could not relate that much, and that robot really didn't have interests that B29 was capable of fitting. As a result of this, B29 kind of took quite a hit. He started becoming more involved with the organization. The organization workers tried to help him, but B29 insisted that he was perfectly fine. As a result of this, some guild, if you remember, a guild has been formed to quote unquote combat the organization basically. And as a result, this guild that ended up having tons of followers and members who around the world who built also were known for building robots that basically assaulted organization facilities. Meanwhile, the street kids would also engineer robots out of metallic scraps and basically use them for entertainment purposes. However, they also were used for the purposes of combating the organization. And they were heavily rewarded and supported, basically. You could say the organization kinda had beef, to the point where even gangsters relate with the guild and all the anti-organization people. Basically, even gangsters go so far as to raiding apartments just to capture those who are suspected to be workers and or supporters of the organization. And being a donator was a completely different story because long story short, you if people found out you're a donator in public, you basically dead. Socially and literally. Because you'd probably have a ton of gangs raiding your home to hunt you down. You may remember that this is basically set in the Microbots and Magic universe, and yeah, it is. Yeah, you could consider that, but for more in-depth explanation of the organization, try watching my previous vids on the Microbots and Magic universe. But long story short, that's basically it. Now, at some point, B-29 encountered one of these robots. They attempted to combat him because they immediately detected the organization's insignia on the stuff he was wearing, because B-29 wears stuff because his AI has advanced to a point where it's a sense of fashion. Also, if you want to know a physical description of what B-29 looks like, basically he looks like completely white, but his face is made of brass, basically. That shiny metal. And there are and his face is completely empty unless for two circles that resemble eyes. Two blue glowing circles that are sensors, basically, but they resemble eyes. That's basically what B-29 looks like. Now B-20 now these other robots like were being controlled by those street kids, and when those street kids detected the organization's insignia on B-29's quote unquote closing, they programmed their robots to take out long pieces of debris and then start trying to fight B-29 with it. However, B-29 was actually quite skilled and managed to successfully overthrow these robots and basically bash them to pieces, which scared the crap out of the street kids, so they ordered even more robots to come. At some point, B-29 decided to take a view over a bridge. By the way, this takes place in Baguio City, by the way, in the Philippines. Now in Baguio City, basically the city is built on mountains, basically. So while B-29 was taking in a view, some of the street kids took a pop cap popper, loaded paper and glass shards in the barrel, and when they popped the cap, it basically caused the gas from the gunpowder inside of it to propelled those glass shards into B-29. However, B-29 was yeah, they were average in terms of durability, but basically they got hit and they fell down. Other kids followed with either pellet guns or those pop cappers that I just or those cap poppers I just mentioned. Some of them even use gunpowder substitutes, just like oily cloths and all all those other gunpowder substitutes, and loaded them into pipes and created like rudimentary muskets with them by shoving shrapnel in there and using matches. They basically shot B-29 multiple times. By the way, for your information, B-29's basically rough is barely the size of 1 foot. Basically, barely 1 foot. Sorry about that. I accidentally kicked the bottle. Now, long story short, B-29 quickly rose back up. This was because the supernatural forces within him possessed him as an entire object. He was a machine, not a living creature. As a result of this, the supernatural forces could be imbued upon to him as an entire object. Therefore, he could quickly regenerate his material body and at the same time have it equally distributed within his processors and circuitry. This basically resulted in this basically resulted in how do I say this? B-29 basically being capable of regenerating. After that, the street kids took their robots and they formed a group around B-29 and they even armed their robots with primitive projectile weapons. Maybe you could imagine it to be those pellet guns, those non-lethal pellet guns, or maybe just something else like slingshots and stuff. But anyways, they kept shooting B-29 and hitting him multiple times. However, B-29 was quickly capable of getting up after the first round. The first round he was obliterated basically due to them, but in the second round he basically ignored everything they shot at him. Like he walked through those projectiles. He basically had no reaction when they kept hitting him, and he just walked over and just stole one of their projectile weapons and used it to kill the rest of the group of robots. Like street kids got so desperate they even took some bikes and just rammed him on high velocity. Basically, they went so far as to like get their bikes and then try to run over him, and they did manage to run over him, but he basically just survived that. The street kids made DIY muskets by using black powder substitutes, some metal pipe, and a bit of wood, string, and some matches. That's what they did. So they did that, and they basically just tracked down where B-29 went. He basically went to a organization facility, so the street kids appeared and started open firing at the organization facility. As a result of this, B-29 was shot multiple times and received heavy damage. How he managed to regenerate, but basically the regeneration process took such a long time due to how much damage was dealt to him. The street kids even went so far as to make DIY bombs basically to just blow the guy up. So you could say him getting the energy to just walk out of there took a lot of his supernatural energy. As a result of this, he was making a very slow recovery. Meanwhile, the kids were praised for attacking an organization facility because why not? As a result of this, B-29 put an end to their rampage. It was quite a lot to, go around slashing anti-organization robots. But basically, the moral of the story is that you should not hurt a robot's feelings because you, you don't know. You might actually be encountering a robot with supernatural abilities and they might end up going on a rampage.